When we think of the mid-19th century, our minds often drift to the rigid etiquette of drawing rooms and the polished silver of aristocratic estates. But James Grant's novel, One of the 600, reminds us that those polite social structures were often just a thin veil covering a much more predatory reality. The story begins in the lush, rolling landscapes of Scotland, where Newton Norcliff, a young cavalry officer, returns to his family estate on leave. He is a man of his time, honourable, perhaps a bit idealistic, and deeply caught up in the romantic complexities of his social circle. Newton's heart belongs to Lady Louisa Loftus. She is striking, beautiful, and carries herself with the effortless grace of the high aristocracy. But Louisa is not just a romantic interest, she is a woman with a very specific sense of direction. Her beauty is matched by a pragmatic, almost cold, social ambition. While Newton sees a soulmate, Louisa sees a potential match that fits her long-term goals. This creates a friction that is immediately stoked by the presence of Warr Berkeley. Berkeley is the kind of man who makes you uncomfortable the moment he enters a room. He is wealthy, cynical, and a social climber in the most predatory sense. He doesn't play by the rules of gentlemanly conduct. Instead, he uses social sabotage to get what he wants. He views Newton as an obstacle to his own influence and begins a campaign to dismantle Newton's reputation. One of the most pivotal moments of this early tension is the mistletoe incident. In the quiet of a conservatory, Berkeley provocatively kisses Louisa, a move designed to ignite Newton's jealousy and cast doubt on the purity of their relationship. As Newton navigates these social minefields, we meet Cora Calderwood, Newton's cousin. If Louisa represents the glittering, ambitious surface of the aristocracy, Cora represents its quiet, steadfast heart. She loves Newton deeply, but it is a selfless, silent love. She watches him pine for Louisa, and she watches the social machinery of the Calderwood estate spin, knowing that the world Newton inhabits is built on appearances rather than truth. The tension reaches a breaking point when Berkeley orchestrates a staged confrontation at a cottage known as the Reculvers. He makes it appear as though Newton is involved in an illicit affair, a scandal that could destroy a cavalry officer's career and standing. It is a calculated strike, a piece of ignoble honour that contrasts sharply with the traditional, formal duels of the era. Just as the social world of Scotland reaches a fever pitch of scandal and whispered accusations, the reality of the world outside intervenes. The Crimean War has begun, and Newton is called to service. The novel undergoes a massive shift in tone as the setting moves from the manicured gardens of Scotland to the mud and blood of the Crimea. The romantic drama of the drawing room is suddenly eclipsed by the sheer, overwhelming brutality of modern warfare. Newton finds himself caught in the siege of Sebastopol, a place where the rules of civilization seem to vanish entirely. The war is not just a series of battles, it is a slow, grinding misery. Newton faces the invisible enemy of cholera, which kills as surely as any Russian bullet. He experiences the chaos of the siege, the confusion of command, and eventually, the terrifying reality of being taken prisoner. In captivity, the novel strips away the romanticism often associated with war stories. Newton witnesses the dehumanizing effects of conflict, seeing men reduced to nothing more than a struggle for survival. There is a particularly harrowing encounter with a survivor who has turned to cannibalism, a moment that serves as a visceral reminder of how quickly the veneer of humanity can crack when faced with absolute desperation. During this time, Newton is also a witness to the spiritual toll of the conflict. There is a quiet, powerful scene involving the death of a nun, Sister Archange. In the midst of the surrounding carnage, her moment of stillness and her capacity for forgiveness provide a sharp, haunting contrast to the senseless violence of the battlefield. It's a moment that suggests that even in the most unholy landscapes, there is a search for something sacred. Eventually, Newton is rescued and returns to the front lines, but the man who returns is not the same man who left Scotland. The social world he once worried about, the whispers of Berkeley, the status of the Loftus family, now feels distant and strangely trivial, yet the consequences of those social choices have followed him. He learns that Louisa has married a marquis. She chose rank and stability over the uncertain passion she shared with Newton. The woman he was once obsessed with has effectively traded him in for a more secure social position. The climax of the novel arrives with the infamous charge of the Light Brigade. This is the Valley of Death made real. Grant depicts the charge not as a glorious, sweeping epic, but as a visceral, chaotic, and terrifying slaughter. The precision of the cavalry is met with the overwhelming, indifferent machinery of heavy artillery. Newton survives the charge, but the cost is devastating. His loyal orderly sergeant, Willie Pitblado, is mortally wounded. Through Pitblado, we see the human cost of empire, the common soldiers who are often forgotten in the grand histories of war, but who carry the true weight of these conflicts on their shoulders. As the smoke clears, Newton returns to Scotland, but he is a man scarred by both the battlefield and the realization of how much of his life was spent chasing illusions. He is a survivor of the 600, those who fell in the service of the Empire, and he carries their memory with him. The resolution of the novel is not a return to the old life, but the beginning of a new one. Newton finds that the stability and depth he once sought in the ambitious Louisa were actually present all along in Cora. Cora has remained steadfast, her love having survived the distance and the silence. The story concludes at Calderwood Glen, where Newton and Cora are married. It is a quiet, soulful piece, a stark contrast to the frantic, performative social climbing of his youth. When we look back at the themes of one of the 600, a few things stand out. There is a profound sense of kismet or destiny. The characters make choices, yes, but they are often dwarfed by the random, overwhelming forces of war and fate. Newton's life is redirected not just by his own decisions, but by the sudden, violent intervention of history. There is also a recurring tension between the noble and the ignoble. We see this in the contrast between the traditional concept of honour, the duels and the duties of an officer, and the predatory, social sabotage practiced by men like Berkeley. The novel suggests that the social warfare of the drawing room can be just as destructive as the physical warfare of the Crimea, though one is much more honest about its violence. The setting also plays a massive role in the book's meaning. Grant uses the juxtaposition of the timeless, beautiful Scottish landscape and the chaotic, unholy landscapes of the Crimean battlefield to highlight the duality of human existence. There is the world of civilization, with its rules and its beauty, and then there is the world of raw, unmitigated survival. Ultimately, the novel is a meditation on the cost of empire and the search for something real. The 600 serves as a metonym for the collective, often unacknowledged sacrifice of the common soldier. Through Newton's journey from romantic obsession to a settled, soulful peace, Grant suggests that true fulfillment isn't found in the pursuit of status or the winning of social games, but in the quiet, steadfast devotion of someone who stays when the world falls apart. It is a story that moves from the noise of ambition to the silence of peace, leaving us to wonder what, in our own lives, is worth the struggle.